and good luck with it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Today we are in Maplewood, New Jersey for the book signing when nobody's home. We're going to introduce the book, how it all began, and we're going to talk about the behavior behind why people use drugs and alcohol or become dependent on it. And we're looking forward to getting this thing off the road.
Tonight is going to be, I think, very interesting and fun because first I get to talk about one of my siblings. And it just happened to coincide with Michael publishing his first book. And so I'm going to just tell you a little bit about him to give you some context, and then I'm going to let Michael talk about how he came to where he is now. Michael is number 6. I always have to count down. I'm number 2 of 11. It was a very busy household and a very noisy household. And Michael is actually he's a twin. And his twin, Markel, did all the talking for Michael. Michael stuttered, and he was very quiet. And I used to kind of worry about him. You would ask Michael, what do you want for lunch? And he'd just kind of look at you. And Markel would say, he wants peanut butter and jelly. And I'd say, really, Michael? And he'd go, mm-hmm. Michael, I realized looking back, was an observer. He was always an observer. He was quiet. He was always paying attention. And he managed to navigate some very difficult times at times because not only did we have the 11 of us, but over the years we had 125 who were part of a group home. You know, when I look back on that, I realize that everybody needs a place where they feel safe and loved and accepted. And I think that's what you'll hear some of that coming from Michael as he talks about his clients and the approach that he's discovered for reaching them successfully. And so I'm going to let him do the talking because he knows all about this, and feel free to interrupt him if you have a really pressing question. Otherwise, wait till he's done and then he'll answer your questions. So thank you very much, Michael.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to take you on a journey. This is where my acting classes will pay off right now. And I say that because this is how I actually got started. I'll take you on a journey on how this all came about. And I went to LA to become an actor, so I studied for 10 years. So I've done monologues, I've done everything. I was there doing my thing on the audition circuit. Then you find out you're not making a lot of money because you got a little guy here growing up. There he is growing up. Going on auditions with me, tagging along, the whole 9 yards. And what I discovered was that I became a probation officer. It landed in my lap. You want to be a PO? I said, I don't want to be because I was teaching at the time. And I saw what they did to the kids. I said, oh, they're kind of harsh on them. I didn't want to do that. But I went anyway. And you stay with something long enough, you get promoted. So now you get promoted to the adult field world. So next thing you know, I am supervising adult probationers. And these guys were alcohol and drug offenders. And during that time, around 2000, I was uncovering stuff about me. In acting, you have to uncover yourself. You know, who are you? You know, what's going on inside to get to the emotional, center so you can play the role. And some of the things I studied were these. One was called Carl Jung. You might have heard of him. Carl Jung, psychologist, best friend of, used to be the best friend of Sigmund Freud. So they had a fallout. But I liked his method. It's called archetypes. And what I did, I used these methods with clients because it made things simpler. And we have about 150, and we use about 5 or 6 of them. Now, for example, an archetype that I'm using right now is my teacher. I like to teach. So this comes up and I can teach. I can instruct you on your golf swing. I can go over here and do this thing because that's my archetype. That's something I just do automatically without thinking. Well, the archetype I discovered in my clients were the wounded child, the abandoned child, the neglected child. And when I would explain that to them to get them to see that, they go, it would make sense to them without using all these fancy psychological terms or anything like that. So that's one approach. There's another approach I used. It was called nonviolent communication. How do we communicate nonviolently without throwing jabs at each other? Because our society, we are trained to actually punish each other verbally when we get in an argument. I will make you submit to get my point across so I can win. And nothing gets solved. So what I did was I used that approach, which means, what are you needing? If you make a comment to me, right, and say, Mr. Oden, you're an idiot, I catch the bullet. Oh, I'm an idiot. Let me look at this. So, where's this coming from? what need are you meeting by calling me this name? And then they kind of like, well, why am I calling him that? Then we go behind their world and go, oh, had a bad day. The wife was yelling at him. Got it. So they get to see why they do what they do. Okay? And the third one I did was I took all that information and I developed a thing called the needs-based method. So what happens is this. Everything we do in life is meeting a need of ours. I don't care what it is. Scratching my face, tying my neck, saying, hey, you're a good-looking guy, meaning I'm meeting a need by validating him. Okay? Your need for you guys to be here is to get information. That's your need. That's one of them. There could be a few. Okay, so we keep it real simple. So I got these clients, and I'm learning all this stuff, and I wanted to know why they did drugs. I heard about disease. I heard all this stuff. I said, well, let's find out. So as the years go by, each client comes in, I hear their story. I hear their story over and over. And the need that I saw that they were not getting was validation, love, respect, support, bonding by a caretaker. I have interviewed over 8,000 men and women. The bottom line that I discovered for their drug use was lack of a need from a caretaker. That's the bottom. If I were to bottom line it, this is it. So then I started taking notes. Then I discovered another thing, what they were missing, and that was their father. 95% of my clients didn't have a father. Now I've interviewed people from Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, the fancy places in California, all the way to South Central, Compton, Watts, very poor, Section 8, welfare, the whole 9 yards. So I had the whole spectrum, and everybody had the same problem. So then I decided, let me take some notes. So over a 7-year period, I was documenting stories, writing notes, and then we had to test them to see who was violating probation. And what I did is I kept a percentage of who failed the test and who didn't. And my clients, I'd say about 15% failed the drug test. I said, okay, 15% is not bad. So what was UCLA doing? Now, Prop 36 was the program we were using in California at the time to, instead of putting him in jail, just shoving him there, we'll put him in a treatment program. That'll help him out. And their success rate was about 10, 15%. I'm going over here. This is over a 3-year period. I'm going, okay, mine's 85, 80. I'm keeping track. I'm really, to be honest, I just want to figure this whole thing out. And every time I worked with my clients, all they would say was this: what you tell me makes more sense. It gets me to understand my behavior, why I was consuming drugs and alcohol for so long. All right? The meaning is that they were meeting an emotional need.